Hi, good morning.
Hello.
I'm an American calling in.
Hurrah.
Here in London working, but I listen to you all the time in the United States. And I have to call in to say I'm really, hopefully respectfully surprised at how shocked everyone is about this term. This is absolutely, globalism is code for anti-Semitism. That's absolutely what it is. And I guess there's some sort of lag, like jet lag, with this term jumping over here.
Yes.
And people not recognizing what it is.
And I mean, it's probably a silly question, but why would Rishi Sunak, who's a Hindu, why would he be accused of being a globalist?
Well, because really what this is about is fear of the other and hate. And really it's just a big smear of just saying everyone that's not me, because we're in a recession and I'm living in fear and I'm concerned about feeding my family and heating my home, and I'm operating from a place of fear and just punching out. And that people are sort of very, very willing to jump on bandwagons, aren't they? When you are concerned about what you should be concerned about, your own health and safety, you have to lash out at other people. And Sunak is not Jewish, but he's not Christian. And that seems to be
and he's not white, and he's not white, and he's very, very rich.
That's right. And sort of, a person of color-based racism is really lazy, isn't it? I mean, it's just the most obvious form of hate because you can just see it on someone. You don't even have to do much thinking. So this is one step where you can't tell if someone is Jewish necessarily. So this is where this code can be very insidious. Of course, it is insidious.
And in America, what has it done?
Well, I mean, it's a term that's
It's not a term I've heard from
anything.
Trump. I don't think I've heard. Trump hasn't talked about it much, has he?
No, but Steve Bannon talks about it all the time. And this is something that you could see because it's just too many syllables for Trump to utter, really. But the idea is really it's all over Fox News all the time, a Rupert Murdoch product. I mean, this is something that's everywhere that you're going to see, and that you're going to hear.
But surely
and
Rupert Murdoch is the very definition of a globalist under this. Albeit he's not Jewish, he's incredibly rich and powerful, and he operates across the English-speaking world more influentially, perhaps, than anybody else alive.
Right, but there's nothing more horrible to most people in cultural fear than Jews. I mean, who was it, Edward I that expelled the Jews in 1290 or something like that from England? So this has always been the people that we kick at the very end, right? The Jews.
Yes.
Because it's easy to grab them and throw them down for whatever reason.
I mean, to my shame, I've only fully grasped this quite recently and in fact, until this word globalist came across my desk, I hadn't drawn the obvious link between the two, in that Judaism becomes something that bigots and demagogues point towards as a loyalty that supersedes national loyalty. So not only, it's a bit, I'm a Catholic, and the idea that I would have more loyalty to Rome than to London is silly, but you don't have to go too far back in British history to see the word. In fact, there are some people still doing it now who would use the word papist as proof that I'm unpatriotic or that I'm opposed to the interests of my own country because I'm actually a papist. You could hop over the Irish Sea and still hear some commentary like that in this day and age. So what it does is posit the existence of a loyalty that is much greater than any national loyalty, and anti-Semitism. That's at the root of anti-Semitism, but it extends much further than mere hatred of Jews.
Right. Well, it was a term that was used. Papist was used for John F. Kennedy in 1960. So this is something that would always be the case. He actually had to give a speech to say, I am a loyal American, and I do not pay homage, and I would not go with the Pope's policy over American policy. Wow. In 1960, with Jackie Kennedy in her pillbox hat standing next to him. These are things that are really common, and it's very overt. I guess it's not overt, but it's very impolite. Even brash Americans don't want to say something about the Jews or something like that. It just makes you look like an idiot. So you're going to say globalism, and if you're not knowledgeable about this, you just think, oh, no, it's them, they're going to hurt me, the globalists,
and you can't
you even know what a Jew is.
And British people can't blame Brussels anymore because we've left, and you can't really blame immigrants anymore because immigration has gone down, and they need something else to blame. And along come the globalists. They can't say Jews because that kind of base anti-Semitism is still unacceptable. But they can say globalists. So they jolly well will.
we're only 14 years since the bottom dropped out in 2008, and that's the normal thing that happens, isn't it? This is where all the hate and the fear happens. When we have when people can't feed their families, you're afraid, and when you're afraid, you have to lash out.
Beautifully put. I don't know now whether we should be embarrassed that we've only really encountered this word in the last month, or relieved. But it is, I think, fair to say that it's a very, very, very familiar song, albeit that we're currently discovering or in Britain at least, we're discovering some relatively new lyrics.
LBC. Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. If England got to the World Cup final in Qatar, would you go?
No. The human rights record is such that I wouldn't go, and that'll be the position of the Labour Party.
James Cleverly, Foreign Secretary. Sir Keir Starmer told me earlier this week he won't be going. Are you?
Well, it is an important international event. I think if I am able to go, I should go.
But do you not send more of a message in the way Sir Keir has said that he will not go, even if England get to the World Cup final?
Well, as leader of the opposition, he's in a lovely position to send messages. I've got real work to do.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Motorway, where dealers compete to give you their best price for your car.
LBC.
Stuart in Amersham. Stuart, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I'm not sure I could put it better than some of your previous callers, actually.
That's all right. They've got brilliant callers.
What's really striking is it's just the Venn diagrams of all these different conspiracy theories, be it the globalist one you're talking about, anti-vax, COVID denialism, whether COVID came from a lab, all the same sort of thing. People get sucked into this. There's got to be an easy answer to a complex question.
What's your exposure to it? What's your exposure to it? Because I draw similar lines to the ones you draw, but not with full confidence, because I'm such a newcomer to some of it, to this particular bit of it, actually.
Well, mine really stems from the scientific side of the COVID denialism, the anti-vax, and some of the conspiracies around the virus. But ultimately, you scratch the surface on these things, and you get to the point where you ask the question about rationale.
Yeah.
What is the reason?
Why are they doing it? That's the killer question, isn't it? Why do they want, whoever they are, why do they want a one world government, for example?
And of course, there's no answer to that. So it's,
control.
Who's perceived to have the money? You scratch the surface, right. What names you come up with? You come up with Soros, you come up with Rothschild. And it happens all the time. And really, what's really scary is when you actually take a step back and look at these conspiracy theories and look at the people peddling them and where the money for that is coming from.
Yes.
It's all the same damn people.
Who is it then? Don't libel anybody. But what sort of lobbies are we talking about here? Or
we're talking about the faceless think tanks and the right-wing uber capitalists and everybody who wants to make a buck.
Aren't they also globalists? An uber capitalist is probably
that's the ultimate irony, isn't it?
So Fox
James?
News actually is a thing we can say without fear or favour. Is it's all over Fox News. People like Tucker Carlson knocking it around like it was going out of fashion, despite working for a man who really is exercising enormous power and influence over world governments.
Yeah, but of course that's the thing behind the curtain they don't want you to see, isn't it?
And how scared are you about the perfect storm that's in place now for this kind of?
I'm very worried.
Yeah,
and I see it from my own sort of career, but I can see the way the blame game is being sort of circulated in an excess around scientists and public health officials and vaccinologists. I mean, I very much fear in the US we're going to get show trials of scientists and Dr. Fauci and all these guys in front of Congress.
Only if the Republicans get back into the White House. It's not going to happen otherwise. I can't see it. And it depends who the Republican is. But the British equivalent now would be the Office for Budget Responsibility. This is another great line in Kirkup's piece. Those attacks are one chapter in a story about an unelected PM cutting spending and raising taxes to appease the unelected Office for Budget Responsibility and the unelected financial markets. And, as with most conspiracy theories, you have a tiny kernel of truth there, but the idea that it's been done for nefarious reasons rather than utterly necessary reasons to try to get our economy back to some semblance of stability and normality is tricky. And that's why Starmer needs to be careful when he talks about an unelected Prime Minister, because that will unintentionally feed the public cynicism about the circumstances we've just described. Stuart, thank you. I'm probably going to take Rishi Sunak's opening comments as Prime Minister, given this is his first appearance in them. Do you think that would be nice?
It'd be worthwhile.
So we've probably only got, 90 seconds or something like that? Or
quick preview?
Should we? Yeah, I'm going to apologise to James in Manchester. We may come back to this subject later. It depends how good PMQs is. We'll either do a PM, as in a post-mortem on PMQs, or we'll return to this question about globalism that is really, really important, because it would appear to be yet another example of people being encouraged to get very, very angry about things they don't understand and hate people who don't exist in order to let the people who are actually responsible for many of their problems off the hook.
So, Keir Starmer, 6 questions to Rishi Sunak. I'd imagine he's going to go in on cost of living, the economy, focusing on the same problems that faced Liz Truss after she came to the conclusion inevitably that she had to reverse on the mini budget of September the 23rd. And so we'd expect questions, I'd imagine, on the pensions triple lock, defence spending, universal credit. Is universal credit going to go up in line with inflation?
With that today, he'll just say we'll find out on November the 17th, won't he, to all that?
I'm not sure he will. I don't think he can. Because people are going to be wondering.
Keeping a close eye on the House of Commons. Maybe they will, yeah. I mean, people need to know. It's now been postponed pretty much since the moment of Boris Johnson's resignation, hasn't it? Some of these questions have been... And now we're back in the grey area again after Truss's...
But expect lots of support. Expect lots of support from the backbenches for Rishi Sunak. You would imagine that, given this is his first PMQs... In direct
contrast to Liz Truss last week.
Yes, and Liz Truss yesterday, she gave a resignation speech on in front of Number
awful.
10
that was
Downing
actually
Street.
Awful.
But the Tories will be wanting to put a show of unity on in the House of Commons to give Rishi Sunak his full backing.
Indeed. Will they mention Braverman? Will they go in on the ministerial code?
They have got an urgent question
immediately
afterwards.
Because Yvette Cooper did it very well yesterday.
Yvette Cooper has an urgent question immediately after PMQs to ask questions about Suella Braverman's reappointment as the Home Secretary, given actually these breaches of ministerial code are actually appearing to be quite serious.
Well, they're getting more serious by the minute, largely due to Tim Shipman's journalism, actually, on Sunday.
Which was ignored, or people didn't pick up on it.
It didn't matter much because she'd gone.
Yes.
But bringing her back is like blowing the embers of this story, and the flames are beginning to appear.
But of course, he needed to bring her back because Suella Braverman's decision to back Rishi Sunak on Sunday afternoon was absolutely critical to ensuring that the right of the Conservative Party backed Rishi Sunak and didn't fall into line behind Boris Johnson, because despite what Boris Johnson has insisted, I had the 102 supporters necessary, it was clear from what people like Sir Ian Duncan-Smith was saying he was actually really struggling to get those numbers, and a question mark about whether he actually did get those numbers. So Suella Braverman's intervention when she made it was critical. And you saw, of course, what happened to Penny Mordaunt, kept in her job as Commons leader. She decided not to do a deal in stepping aside. And, of course, she's just kept the same relatively lowly job of Commons leader that she had previously, because she wanted to push it all the way to the wire to see if she could get the supporters to make it onto the ballot paper.
She didn't look very happy, did she?
No, but unsurprising, given that she had no leverage with Rishi Sunak. Suella Braverman did have leverage with Rishi Sunak. She used it, and she got her old job back.
The leverage was promising to support him on Sunday.
Yes. And then she's back in the.
Do you think he didn't realise how bad it was? Well, he should have read the Sunday Times on Sunday morning. I'm not making excuses for him by any stretch of the imagination.
What's interesting about this is that Rishi Sunak would have wanted a clean break. But of course, whilst Boris Johnson has left, Liz Truss has left, the party itself hasn't undergone, the parliamentary party hasn't undergone some sort of change of heart. It's the same as what it is.
Questions, I'd like to point out the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. We start with questions to Prime Minister. In welcoming the Prime Minister, I call Dr. Alan Whitehead.
I think we'll take it in its entirety. It's not every week you get a new Prime Minister. Well, actually it is.
Mr. Speaker,
can I just say, don't damage the furniture. Cheer him by all means, but don't damage. Come on.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others in addition to my duties in this House. I shall have further such meetings later today.
I'd like to congratulate the Prime Minister on his new post and indeed as being the first Prime Minister of a South Asian heritage, which will be a cause of great pride among many of my constituents. I also have some pride in welcoming a fellow Saints Southampton supporter into number 10. During his prime ministerial campaigns, the last prime ministerial campaign he ran, he pledged to prohibit any development of onshore wind, which is now the cheapest form of power available to us in the country. Now he is Prime Minister. Will he change his mind on that point?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for his kind words and look forward to seeing him at St Mary's. Although I know my friend, the Leader of the House, may have something to say about our love of saints. Look, when it comes to energy policy, I stick by what we said in our manifesto, Mr. Speaker. The important thing is, though, to focus on our long-term energy security. That means more renewables, more offshore wind, and indeed more nuclear. That's what this government will deliver.
I'm surprised, Mr. Speaker, to be asking a question, and I know you're shocked, Mr. Speaker, too, because I know that you, like many people, thought I would have already been offered a ministerial post.
Let me tell you, I didn't hold my breath. Philip Davis.
Go figure, as Joe Biden might say. Can I congratulate my right honourable friend on becoming Prime Minister? He's absolutely the right person for the job, and I wish him every success in post, and as he knows, he's got my full support.
Should be the Prime Minister answering this rather self-indulgent intervention from the ludicrous Philip Davies, and then it'll be Keir Starmer. On reflection, it may have been a little previous of me to decide to cross to the House of Commons so early. I shall definitely be blaming Theo.
Who is you? It's your idea.
Was it my idea? The mic's off. What do you mean it was my idea? Quick, turn off the microphones.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his warm remarks. I can confirm he must be the only person, Mr. Speaker, who texted me to say that he did not want a job in the last 24 hours. But I can give him my cast iron commitment to levelling up, particularly in Yorkshire, which he and I share. Obviously, he'll know I can't comment on individual bids, but by the end of the year, an announcement is expected on the success, and I wish him every luck with that.
Let's come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I welcome the Prime Minister. The first British Asian Prime Minister is a significant moment in our national story. And it's a reminder that for all the challenges we face as a country, Britain is a place where people of all races and all beliefs can fulfil their dreams. That's not true in every country, and many didn't think that they would live to see the day when it would be true here. It's part of what makes us all so proud to be British. Was his Home Secretary right to resign last week for a breach of security?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank the honourable gentleman for his kind and indeed generous welcome to the dispatch box. I look forward to Prime Minister's question time with him, and I know that we will have, no doubt, robust exchanges, but I hope that they can also be serious and grown up. So I look forward to it. Well, he asked about the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary made an error of judgment, but she recognised that. She raised the matter and she accepted her mistake. And that's why I was delighted to welcome back into a united cabinet that brings experience and stability to the heart of government. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, what the Home Secretary will be focused on. She'll be focused on cracking down on criminals, on defending our borders, while the party opposite remains soft on crime and in favour of unlimited immigration.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister stood on the steps of Downing Street and promised integrity, professionalism and accountability. But then, with his first act, he appointed a Home Secretary who was sacked by his predecessor a week ago for deliberately pinging around sensitive Home Office documents from her personal account. Far from soft on crime, I ran the Crown Prosecution Service for 5 years. I worked with Home Secretaries to take on terrorists and serious organised crime. And I know firsthand how important it is that we have a Home Secretary whose integrity and professionalism are beyond question. So, have officials raised concerns about his decision to appoint her?
Mr. Speaker, I just addressed the issue with the Home Secretary, but he talked about fighting crime. I would hope, Mr. Speaker, that he would welcome. I would hope that as we look forward, he would welcome the news today that there are over 15,000 new police officers on our street. And the Home Secretary will be supporting them to tackle burglaries. Well, the party opposite will be backing the lunatic protesting fringe that are stopping working people going about their lives.
Yes, Starmer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I listened carefully. That was clearly not a no. We can all see what's happened here. He's so weak, he's done a grubby deal, trading national security because he was scared to lose another leadership election. There's a new Tory at the top, but as always with them, party first, country second. Yesterday, on the steps of Downing Street, he also admitted what the whole country knows. The Tories have crashed the economy and now somebody has to pay for their mess. I say it shouldn't be working people who've been hammered time and again by this lot, but those with the broadest shoulders must step up. Does he agree?
No. Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman talked about party first and country second. Perhaps he could explain to us why it was a few years ago he was supporting the member for Islington North. Mr. Speaker, my record is clear. When times are difficult in this country, I will always protect the most vulnerable. That is the values of our compassionate party. We did it in COVID and we will do that again.
Mr. Speaker, he says he'll protect the most vulnerable. Let's test that. The government currently allows very rich people to live here but register abroad for tax purposes. I don't need to explain to the Prime Minister how non-dom status works. He already knows all about that. It costs the Treasury £3.2 billion every year. Why doesn't he put his money where his mouth is and get rid of it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have been honest. We will have to take difficult decisions to restore economic stability and confidence. And my honourable friend, the Chancellor, will set that out in an autumn statement in just a few weeks. But what I can say, as we did during COVID, we will always protect the most vulnerable. We will do this in a fair way. But what I can say, I am glad, Mr. Speaker, that the party opposite, honourable gentleman, has finally realised that spending does need to be paid for. It is a novel concept for the party opposite. This government is going to restore economic stability and we will do it in a fair and compassionate way.
I know he's been away for a few weeks, but he should have listened to what's been going on the last 2. But anyway, I have to say, I'm surprised he's still defending non-dom status. He pretends he's on the side of working people, but in private he says something very different. Over the summer, he was secretly recorded at a garden party in Tunbridge Wells, boasting to a group of Tory members that he personally moved money away from deprived areas to wealthy places instead. Rather than apologise or pretend that he meant something else, why doesn't he now do the right thing and undo the changes that he made to those funding formulas?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know the right honourable gentleman rarely leaves North London. But if he does, he will know that there are deprived areas in our rural communities, in our coastal communities, and across the south, and this government will relentlessly support them, because we are a government that will deliver for people across the United Kingdom. But Mr. Speaker, he mentioned the last few weeks. I am the first to admit that mistakes were made, and that's the reason I am standing here. But that is the difference between him and me. This summer, I was being honest about the difficulties that we were facing. But when he ran for leader, he promised his party he would borrow billions and billions of pounds. I told the truth for the good of the country. He told his party what it wanted to hear. Leadership is not selling fairy tales. It is confronting challenges, and that is the leadership the British people will get from this government.
Mr. Speaker, I think everyone should watch the video and make their own minds up. In public, he claims he wants to level up the north, but then he boasts about trying to funnel vital investment away from deprived areas. He says one thing and does another. But they're shouting. They're not my words. They're not my words. They're the words of the former chair of the Tory party, sacked yesterday for telling the truth about the Prime Minister. Even his own side know he's not on the side of working people. That's why the only time he ran in a competitive election, he got trounced by the former Prime Minister, who herself got beaten by a lettuce. So why doesn't he put it to the test, let working people have their say and call a general election?
Well, it'll take a long time to get through this paper if we carry on like this, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about mandates, about votes, about elections. It's a bit rich coming from the person who tried to overturn the biggest democratic vote in our country's history. Our mandate is based on a manifesto that we were elected on, to remind him an election that we won and they lost. A mandate that says we want a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders and levelling up. That is the mandate that I and this government will deliver for the British people.
Heather's not even asked her a question. You want more? Come on, Heather.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate my right honourable friend and new Prime Minister, and also to thank our previous Prime Minister for the straightforward way she has handled her resignation, and I wish her and her family well for the future. Would my right honourable friend please use this, his first appearance of the dispatch box, to make it clear to the British Medical Council and the British Dental Association that, as well as training, more training spaces opening up, that they must allow new doctors and dentists to work in the UK so that the good people of South Derbyshire can get treatment on the NHS.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. She's absolutely right. I'm pleased that there are 3,500 more doctors and over 9,000 more nurses working this year than last. But she's right, and we are working to simplify the registration for dentists in particular that are not trained here to practice here, and that's how we'll help deliver a long-term workforce plan for the NHS and ensure everyone can get the care they need.
Let's come to the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate the new Prime Minister on becoming the first British Asian to hold the office. The significance and the symbolism of this achievement is to be warmly welcomed by everyone. Mr. Speaker, yesterday on the steps of Downing Street, the new Prime Minister promised to bring, and I quote, compassion to the challenges that we face today. So, on his first full day in the job, let's put that to the test. A winter of uncertainty is coming, and next April will see a cliff edge moment. Millions face a double whammy as the energy price guarantee is cut off, while households are hit by austerity 2.0 and a real terms cut to social security benefits that many rely on to survive. If people are actually to trust the new Prime Minister's words about compassion, will he today reassure people and guarantee that benefits will rise in line with inflation in his upcoming budget?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for his, again, kind remarks. And what I can tell him is my record on this is clear. Through the difficult times that we faced in this country through COVID, I always acted in a way to protect the most vulnerable. That's because it is the right thing to do, and those are the values of our compassionate party. And I can absolutely reassure him and give him that commitment that we will continue to act like that in the weeks ahead.
Blackford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's test that, because as Chancellor, the Prime Minister slashed universal credit and presided over the worst levels. Well, you know, for the hard of hearing on the Tory side, I might remind them that universal credit was cut by £20 a week and presided over the worst levels of poverty in North West Europe. So I hope that he has learned from his mistakes and guarantees that benefits will rise in line with inflation. But speaking of mistakes, yesterday the Prime Minister appointed a Home Secretary who was forced to resign only last week for breaching the ministerial code, and who boasted that she dreamed of sending vulnerable asylum seekers to Rwanda. We all know why he appointed her, a sleazy backroom deal to shore up his own position. Far from being a fresh start, this is a return to the sleaze and scandal and ghosts of cabinets past. The Prime Minister promised to govern with integrity and humility. So if he has an ounce of either, will he admit his mistake and sack the Home Secretary without the delay?
Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to actually have a call last night with the First Minister of Scotland. It was important that I spoke to her on my first day in office because I wanted to express my desire to work constructively with the Scottish Government so that we can work together to deliver for the people of Scotland, and that is what I plan to do. And indeed, I hope crime is one of the things that we can collaborate on, because he will know that violent crime is rising in Scotland and police numbers are falling. Whereas here, we are increasing police numbers, Mr. Speaker. But I look forward to working with the Scottish Government on our shared challenges, because I believe in a strong United Kingdom.
Dr. Andrew Marissa.
Mr. Speaker, what a pleasure it was to welcome the Prime Minister to my constituency in the summer. He will know one of the burning issues in my constituency is the proposed waste incinerator at Westbury. With the government rightly reviewing its air quality targets, can I ask my right honourable friend to signal his intent to continue promoting public health, net zero and the environment by placing a moratorium on any more unwanted, unnecessary, toxic waste burners?
Prime Minister.
I can tell my honourable friend, I know he's been a vociferous campaigner on this issue as I learned over the summer. He'll know that local authorities determine these issues, but also to reassure him that all large incinerators in England must comply with strict emission limits and only receive permits if plants don't cause any damage to human health. And hopefully that is reassuring for him.
Caroline Lucas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's reckless predecessor took a wrecking ball to nature, prompting millions of members of the RSPB, the National Trust and the Wildlife Trust to rise up in opposition. Yesterday, he promised to fix her mistakes as well as to uphold the party's 2019 manifesto. So if he is a man of his word, will he start by reversing the green light she gave to fracking, since it's categorically not been shown to be safe, and instead maintain the moratorium that was pledged in that very manifesto that he has promised to uphold?
Well, I've already said I stand by the manifesto on that, but what I would say is that I'm proud that this government has passed the landmark Environment Act, putting more protection for the natural environment than we've ever had, with a clear plan to deliver. And I can give the Honourable Lady my commitment.
21 minutes after 12. Keep an eye on fracking. That's going to come back. Frack. Backtracking? No. We will pick over the bones of PMQs with Theo Ushwood after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
25 minutes after 12. Do you know, I know I began the programme this morning with an apology for offering up some warm words about Rishi Sunak's speech yesterday, and then, of course, a reverse ferret on whether I should apologise, because if you confined my commentary solely to the speech, it was perfectly justified and only fell apart later when he started appointing his cabinet, chiefly the reappointment of Suella Braverman. But I'm quite pleased that I was nice about him yesterday, because now you know that I'm being completely sincere when I say that was absolutely appalling. And that was almost breathtakingly, well, it was breathtakingly bad. It took my breath away. So bad was it. And I am therefore fascinated to see some people on socials, as the kids call it, offering up warm words for him. Now, when I say some people, I mean people that often have quite intelligent things to say, people with perspectives that I sometimes respect. Because I would have thought that if you are still barking furiously at the moon about North London, he said yesterday on this radio station that he didn't support Just Stop Oil protesters, but it doesn't stop Sunak standing up and lying, talking about uncontrolled immigration. It was like a really bad karaoke singer trying to do Boris Johnson's greatest hits, wasn't it? I felt. And we'll pick over it with Theo shortly. I will remind you in a minute. Actually, I'll remind you now. But then I want your thoughts, because I could easily be wrong again. I was wrong yesterday when I said his speech. Well, I wasn't wrong yesterday. I was right yesterday when I said his speech was encouraging, but I was wrong to believe him, because he quickly revealed that he didn't stand by the commitment to professionalism, integrity and accountability that he claimed. He abandoned that position 4.5 hours later, as Keir Starmer pointed out, almost word for word, actually, from my introduction this morning. But anyway, I digress. Here's the point. I could be wrong again. Maybe he did do a good job, which means for the first time in a very long time, when I invite you to ring in and tell me what you thought about PMQs, I'm actually really looking forward to it. It's not my favourite half hour of the week, this, for reasons. But I'm really looking forward to finding out whether you thought he did a good job or a bad job. So 034 60973 is the number you need. I can tell you that Lisa Nandy, the Labour MP for Wigan and Shadow Secretary of State for Levelling Up, so she is now shadowing Michael Gove once again, has written to Michael Gove calling for an independent inquiry into one of the things that Keir Starmer just referred to, specifically his boast in Tunbridge Wells that he had moved money away from deprived areas into areas like Tunbridge Wells. Here is that leaked recording that the New Statesman got hold of.
From all of you, I managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
He said areas like this. He was in an orchard in Tunbridge Wells, as far as I could tell. So I don't know quite where the dire need for funding is there. But that means there are now, on Rishi Sunak's first full day in charge, calls for an inquiry into how he could have appointed a Home Secretary who broke the ministerial code twice last week and lied about it and therefore got fired, and his own boast that he'd rewritten funding formulas without any parliamentary mandate in order to move money away from poor urban areas to places like Tunbridge Wells. Theo Ushwood.
So Lisa Nandy has, as you said, written to Michael Gove asking for an investigation, saying this could not be more serious. The Prime Minister has admitted that when he was Chancellor, he fixed the rules to funnel taxpayers' money from deprived to more affluent parts of the country. This is the complete opposite of levelling up. So as you say, James, two inquiries now. And Keir Starmer trying to portray Rishi Sunak as a traditional Thatcherite Conservative. Just on those 2 points, by the way, when it comes to Just Stop Oil protesters, Keir Starmer drew fire from the left of his party when he described those protesters on LBC as arrogant, saying that Labour would introduce tougher prison sentences for those who stop ambulances and emergency services trying to get to 999 calls because they'd blocked the roads. On immigration, he said that actually he thought Labour's position and the Conservative position on immigration policy, there was not a great deal between the two parties. So
doesn't matter though, does it? And this is what's so disappointing so early from Sunak, is that he's gone completely down the populist demagogue route. I have to say, for the record, the grown-ups are not back in the building. He's a mewling infant shouting about North London, uncontrolled immigration. He even reached for Jeremy Corbyn and Brexit. It's 2022. Jeremy Corbyn hasn't been leader of the Labour Party for 3 years, and Brexit was over 6 years ago. OK, even if you want to take the aftermath when people suggested it wasn't going to go terribly well and therefore we should be honest with voters and give them a chance to have a bit of a rethink. they were right. It's gone appallingly badly, which is why even yesterday he was promising to finally find some benefits. Absolutely dismal.
But the point is that they have, in politics, politicians have, if you like, high notes, that they know if they hit that high note, whether it's Jeremy Corbyn, whether it's immigration, whether it's the economy, whatever it is, they know if they repeat it, then their hope is that voters will suddenly go, oh yeah, I know about that, I recognise that, and then they'll play that same, they'll run along to that, or they'll sing along to that same tune. That's why they do it at something like PMQs, where generally, though, compared to other parts of the political weekly timetable, people tune in, and that's why Rishi Sunak will do it. Interestingly, Keir Starmer got it out of him, and I know you're critical of me for pointing it out, but he got it out of him that Rishi Sunak was standing by Suella Braverman. He wants that on the record in the House of Commons. Here's your opportunity to distance yourself from your Home Secretary.
So just for people, we shouldn't do this. It's like a red button. I teased Theo for tweeting that Sunak was standing by Braverman, because I said, what else could he do? But as ever, Theo is quite correct to point out that it is significant precisely because it is now on the record, just as Starmer got Boris Johnson to state on the record that there hadn't been any parties in Downing Street.
So if he sacks her, it's a U-turn.
Yes, of course.
So that's why sometimes you do questions so you can hold back the answer for later. He also, and Rishi Sunak did not answer this question, he asked whether any officials had raised at any point concerns about Suella's
Because they almost certainly have.
Well, he didn't answer it on the record because he couldn't answer it on the record.
Because the only answer he could give would be yes.
You can only assume that because if he
could say no, he would have said no. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Elementary, my dear Theo.
Yes, and of course, and just to the point I was making about trying to portray Rishi Sunak as a traditional Conservative, he raised the issue of non-dom status. Keir Starmer did, and he says, I don't need to explain to the Prime Minister how non-dom status works. He already knows that, and of course, that's a reference to Rishi Sunak's wife, who enjoyed non-dom status until it was revealed, and then she had to give up that status. So, my point is that Rishi Sunak, he's trying to make him look not as though Rishi Sunak would want him to portray himself as a kind, compassionate Conservative who will make the right decisions like he did when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And I'll come on to Ian Blackford's question in a moment, but actually a traditional right-wing Conservative Prime Minister to try and draw that difference between Labour and the Tories. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I was interrupting you. Here's a question we might return to after the news. Does he mean it when he hits those high notes, when he talks about North London? I mean, this is a multi-millionaire trying to portray North London as the source of Keir Starmer being somehow out of touch with less well-off people. Keir Starmer, who grew up in considerably humbler circumstances than most MPs, never mind most...
The question is not, does he mean it?
Well, that's the question I'm asking.
The question
can
is...
he persuade people that he means it? In a way, well, you preempt me slightly, because I don't think Boris Johnson meant it. He literally lived with a North London lawyer for the duration of his last marriage.
But if you go by his electoral record in record in front of voters in 2019, they believed him.
Immigration, from which a lot of families on the front bench benefited.
The Ian Blackford question, the first question, was very interesting, by the way.
Let's take some news and come back. Is that all right? Thank you. Martin Worley is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Maybe I am a victim of footballification this afternoon. Maybe the things that I thought made Rishi Sunak's debut as PMQs, I mean, genuinely appalling, absolutely unbelievably awful. Maybe the same thing make other people think it went rather well, because there is some praise for him, mostly from predictable sources and therefore slightly deluded contributors to public discourse, but not conclusively, not exclusively. Some people I rather admire think that he did a good job. So I don't get. People that are, historically wrong about everything from Boris Johnson to Brexit are bound to be pretending that they liked it. And what they liked about it was this ludicrous litany of meaningless guff. North London, law, criminals, protesters, uncontrolled immigration, Jeremy Corbyn and Brexit. What's new about Rishi Sunak's performance as Prime Minister? Well, I really like the way he went in hard on Brexit, Corbyn, immigration. Oh, Nothing new at all. Meet the new guy, same as the old guy. So I don't know. But anyway, here's the thing. Phone line's open. 0345 6060973 is the number to call. What did you think of that? Let's start with Graham, who's in Rickmansworth. Theo is still here. We'll return to him shortly, but I want to get some other voices on the old radio. And if you hit the numbers now, you will get through. I just thought it was appalling. I can't believe anybody would disagree. And remember, yesterday I was nice about him, so I'm not being all footballified myself. I'm perfectly capable of loosening the knot in my scarf to naively welcome what appeared to be a genuine promise to start valuing accountability, integrity and professionalism. But then he just stood up and did Boris Johnson's greatest hits without really having the singing voice for it. Graham's in Rickmansworth. Graham, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hello, James.
Hello,
first-time caller.
Welcome.
Unfortunately, I think I'm just adding to the volume in our little echo chamber here, because in the last 30 seconds...
Oh, no. No, he's been cut off for using the word echo chamber. Tony's in Horsham. Tony, what did you make of it all?
Hello, James. Well,
Hello.
I thought it sounded like the PMQs could have been led by Liz Truss or Boris Johnson. The words were almost the same. It just sounded like the same old script. And what worries me is that we're obviously into a new era of not answering questions with straight answers. I noticed that with...
Was it always like that? I mean, it's so long since we had a Labour Prime Minister. I suspect Gordon Brown probably tried to provide proper answers, but are we sure Tony Blair did?
Well, Tony Blair, wasn't he the king of spin?
Yes.
With Alistair Campbell. I know that all prime ministers seem to do it, but it's just frustrating when you have the ability to listen on radio to the PMQs. You just hear the same old argy-bargy, he said, she said, and no straight, particularly the question asked by Keir Starmer about whether officials had advised
That's
against
going to come back.
Suella Braverman.
Because what he needed to do, and I'm sure what he wanted to do, this is why it's fascinating, and no wonder Theo gets so excited. He needed to draw a line under it, didn't he? He needed to be a fresh start, but he's ended up with one of Liz Truss's heaviest millstones round his neck. He's ended up with Suella Braverman still in the Home Office in an even worse position than she was before she left the Home Office. I mean, just being awful and saying those disgusting things about dreaming about deporting refugees was bad enough, and her tofu-eating wokerati gibberish at conference. So she was already a bit of a liability, even though the far right like her. But she's now damaged goods because she got fired for breaking the ministerial code twice. So any hope Rishi Sunak has of a fresh start or drawing a line under what went before has disappeared in a Suella Braverman-shaped cloud, hasn't it?
Well, it almost sounded actually as if Rishi Sunak had been in place for 10 years or more. He sounded like he was
just getting confident. He sounded more confident than he did yesterday, didn't he?
Yes, he had, but it was the same with the same not answering questions. It was the same, yes, but Labour's done this, and at least Keir Starmer held his integrity. He stuck to his questions. He didn't hurl any real political abuse. It was just factual.
And you had a Conservative leader after the last month trying to accuse Labour of economic incompetence or economic irresponsibility. That was the point where Starmer actually started laughing. And that is another point where I'm utterly baffled by how anybody could be viewing that in a positive light. You've just seen the Conservative Party tank the pound on a scale that's literally never happened before. A Prime Minister chased out of office by her own fiscal incompetence, having already sacrificed her Chancellor on the altar of trying to restore a little bit of stability. And then he tries to accuse the Labour Party of being bad with money. And some people are tweeting that it went very well for him. My phone lines are open. They are not ringing off the hook. So challenge me. Tell me why it did actually go well. 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. How could anybody think that was good? Theo, I interrupted you.
I just wanted to raise the Ian Blackford question, leader of the SNP in Westminster, because he asked a question about universal credit, whether it's going to rise in line with inflation. We know, of course, that we're going to have an autumn statement now on November the 17th. Rishi Sunak did not provide any guarantee that it would go up by 10.1%, which of course is the inflation figure from November. But he did say that the government would act with compassion and fairness that it showed during the pandemic, of course a reference to furlough. And he also had a dig at Liz Truss. Do you remember how she described the Scottish First Minister? From the
someone
campaign?
who best ignored or something like that?
An attention seeker who was best ignored. Rishi Sunak making a point of telling Ian Blackford that he spoke to Nicola Sturgeon last night after becoming Prime Minister. And we've got the urgent question, which is now underway from Yvette Cooper. Do you know who's not turned up?
Suella Braverman.
Yes, Jeremy Quinn, the Home Office Minister, is in her place, and we will bring. And as soon as I've got that, I'll bring it to you.
Wonder if we should have taken it live.
No, it's an urgent question. They can be very bitty.
Okay.
I'll bring you the best bits.
Yeah, do that. So we will see you before the end. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The time now is 12:44.
Coming up at 1 on LBC, Sheila Fogarty.
If a Home Secretary's mistake is so serious she resigns, is 6 days in the sin bin long enough?
Sheila Fogarty on LBC.
Our pledge is to put more money in the public's pocket.
What about my household bills?
Feeling that cost of living crunch? Lebara are here to help. 3 gigabytes of data, EU roaming included, and no annual price rises, all for just £5 a month. Lebara, more for less. Change or cancel anytime. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Buy now at lebara.co.uk. Terms apply.
I'm Julius Caesar, an emperor, not a tradesperson. But if I was, I'd be on Checkatrade. 8 out of 10 homeowners surveyed would choose a tradesperson from Checkatrade over one that isn't. And they guarantee your work for a year. So apply today. Up to £1,000, T's and C's apply.
It could be a family syndicate. It could be someone whose birthday is their lucky numbers. It could be you. Don't miss tonight's Lotto Triple Rollover. Play on app, online and in-store. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
Our daughter has cerebral palsy. Erwin Mitchell got her the help she needed. They gave us hope for Hayley's future. That was the human touch that mattered.
Our legal and financial experts understand the impact of a serious injury. We'll help you receive the best possible support, medical care and rehabilitation. We really get to know you so you can get the most out of life. Erwin Mitchell, the expert hand with the human touch. Find out more at erwinmitchell.com. Authorised and regulated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority.
Love animals. Love Bearkind bamboo socks. For the ones that love puffins, pangolins or panthers, hedgehogs, orangutans or bumblebees. There's a pair of Bearkind socks for everyone. Printed with endangered animals on the outside and super soft on the inside. Give the gift of cosy happy feet with 20% off 5 pairs or more. Find their favourite animal. Search Bearkind bamboo socks now. Delivery included.
COVID-19 and flu spread more quickly in winter and can both cause serious illness. Protection provided by COVID-19 vaccines decreases over time. So if you're over 50, in an at-risk group, or pregnant, boost your immunity now. And because flu viruses can change every year, many adults and children can also get a free flu vaccine. Vaccines are your best protection, even if you've had COVID-19 or flu. Find out if you're eligible at nhs.uk and book now.
At Related Argent, we're passionate about transforming locations into enjoyable places to visit and call home. We're the people behind the places people love, including New York's Hudson Yards, London's iconic King's Cross, and now Brent Cross Town. Our new park town for future London, set in 50 acres of parks and playing fields, with incredible homes, a new high street, and a vision to be net zero carbon by 2030. All just 12 minutes from King's Cross. To find out more, search Related Argent.
With PensionBee, you can combine, contribute and withdraw from your pension online. We helped Hannah bring 5 workplace pensions together into one new online plan.
One of the things that attracted me to PensionBee was how easy it was to bring all my different workplace pensions together all in one place.
We're making pensions simple so everyone can look forward to a happy retirement. Be pension confident. Join at pensionbee.com. When investing, capital is at risk.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with James O'Brien.
7:48 is the time. My apologies to Lottie Morley, our newsreader. I misheard what was said in my ear and thought we had a new newsreader on the team sheet, which meant I called her Martin. I called Martin Morley. I think I used to play left back for Aston Villa in the 1970s. It's entirely my fault. I need to wash my ears out. I do apologise, Lottie. It's a pleasure to hear her dulcet tones on the programme. I was slightly taken aback from it. I was expecting a sort of blokey sound, and then a lovely voice came over the air. No, I don't think anyone even noticed. That's a sign of a genuine apology. No one even noticed I'd done it, but I did. And that's the point. If you've done something wrong, you should apologise for it. Has Suella Braverman apologised? She was at PMQs, but then she left for the urgent question about her that Yvette Cooper has just asked.
Yes, it's a good question. Do you want to hear it now?
Yeah, please.
OK, let's hear. This is the question, of course, about Suella Braverman's reappointment. Cabinet Office inquiries have been demanded by both Labour and the Lib Dems. This was what Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, had to say.
The Minister is a former policing minister. Does he think that if police officers breached their code of ethics and were sacked or forced to resign, they should then be reappointed to their jobs 6 days later because they said sorry? Or is it just one rule for the Cabinet and another for everyone else? Everyone knows this was a grubby deal to get a coronation to put party before country. But national security is too important for this.
So, of course, as you were saying...
Actually very strong. Again, I talked at the very top of the show today about objectivity and things you'd agree on. You'd hope that if this were happening to a Labour front bench, then you'd feel equally troubled by it, equally perturbed.
Suella Braverman is to Rishi Sunak.
Yes.
Her reappointment as Home Secretary is to Rishi Sunak what all those promises to cut taxes were to Liz Truss.
Yeah.
It secured the crown, but a price is going to have to be paid. And instead of actually going to the dispatch box and answering the questions posed by Yvette Cooper, Suella Braverman sent Jeremy Quinn, Junior Home Office Minister, instead.
At the end of the day, it's very simple. The Home Secretary made a mistake. She's acknowledged that she made a mistake. She offered her resignation and she stood down. The Prime Minister has looked again, and the Prime Minister has decided, as is his decision, that she can return to government. I believe in redemption. I hope the Right Honourable Lady can as well. And she is busy today, as she will be, doing the job of the Home Secretary, keeping our border secure, helping the police to do their job. And I'm sure the Right Honourable Lady welcomes, as I do, the fact that we have now over 15,000 additional police officers delivering day in, day out for the country. That is what you can rely upon this government to do.
The really interesting bit of that answer from Jeremy Quinn, as he said, the Prime Minister has looked again at it.
Right. Oh,
the Prime Minister has looked again at it. So going by that answer from Jeremy Quinn, Rishi Sunak knew all of the details in Tim Shipman's Sunday Times piece. He knew all of the ins and outs of exactly what Suella Braverman shared in that personal email that was sent, which of course included market-sensitive data. If you're dealing with immigration and the OBR forecast, the Office for Budget Responsibility...
But also the contention that it couldn't possibly have been a mistake because she did it twice, and that the security sources were already concerned about her doing this sort of thing, similar previously.
And going by that answer from Mr Quinn, Rishi Sunak has overruled that advice because he's looked at it again, he's gone over the details, and he's still decided to make the reappointment of Suella Braverman.
Go back to that. Suella Braverman, this is Shipman on Sunday, did not mistakenly leak a meaningless document. She endlessly consulted a maverick. This is John Hayes. She deliberately emailed a policy document not yet agreed to her own private email, and then she sent it to John Hayes and someone she thought was his wife. Then she lied to the Prime Minister about when it was sent. So it's not a mistake.
And then it got sent to, correct me if I'm wrong, by Tim Shipman's analysis, it got sent to the backbench Conservative MP Andrew Percy.
There was an aide to Andrew Percy who received it in error. That was a mistake.
And then, of course, Andrew Percy notified the Chief Whip, Wendy Morton, who passed the details on to Liz Truss, who then sacked Suella Braverman.
Yeah, and that aide flagged it up, or rather went to his boss, Andrew Percy, and Andrew Percy told the Chief Whip, Wendy Morton. And I mean, this is not a mistake. This is a deliberate double header, which she then lied about. I mean, because unless it's wrong, unless it was sent at 4:30 in the morning, as she claimed, and not at 7:30 in the morning, as Tim Shipman has reported.
And this may well emerge, James, is that if you are working in the Home Office with sensitive documents dealing with sensitive issues, you have to go through security clearance. And the inference is, from what Tim Shipman is saying, is that John Hayes the MP, has been regularly visiting the Home Office while Suella Braverman was Home Secretary. Of course, he is a member of that caucus of right-wing Conservative MPs, and that has even raised concern amongst senior civil servants who work at the Home Office that he is being privy to information that is sensitive. And of course, if you are being privy to information that's sensitive, market sensitive, in the case of these details when it came to migration policy and the OBR forecast, the impact it would have on economic growth, then that is, of course, going to raise serious questions that Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, has now been asked to investigate.
And he'll have to, won't he? Or will he?
Yeah. Well, he's said to be livid about it, about the decision. And of course, this... if Rishi Sunak stood on the steps of Downing Street yesterday and said he wants to bring integrity and professionalism back to Downing Street, then how does this draw a line?
With having her in post with this hanging over?
But it's her decision in that Daily Telegraph article on Sunday afternoon to back Rishi Sunak took all of the wind out of Boris Johnson's.
It was significant, wasn't it? It was because she would be presumed to head towards Johnson, given that he'd.
And you would expect that caucus of MPs, because MPs move like herds.
And that's why little Marquis Francois couldn't deliver the whole of the ERG, because Suella Braverman had already taken half of them to Sunak.
So, and that Mark Francois had to say, well, we're split, we can't quite do it, because Braverman had brought that support to Rishi Sunak and, quote-unquote, united the party. But at what price?
That's at what price? I love it when you say that. You go all Dickensian. A number 10 source was withering. This is also from the Sunday Times. She, as in Braverman, doesn't make any decision without consulting John Hayes, who had been acting as an unofficial advisor, frequently seen in the Home Office. He's very anti-immigration, isn't he? He's kind of... and this had come to the attention of the Permanent Secretary in the Home Office, Matthew Rycroft, and the source said, concerns had been raised prior to Wednesday that Braverman might have been sharing restricted government documents with people she shouldn't have, a source said. Braverman agreed to resign, and Rishi Sunak insisted yesterday that professionalism, accountability and integrity were at the very top of his to-do list. Thank you, Theo. Anything else, or shall I squeeze in Liz?
There is something. There was something. Just bear with
Jimmy
me.
Cricket, that wasn't it? And there's more. And there's more. Come here. And there's more.
There was quite an astounding quote about sharing details on private emails, because a source close to Suella Braverman, this according to Dan Bloom at the Daily Mirror, says ministers do this all the time. They use private email and are also WhatsApping documents all the time too.
But that's not true.
They don't do it all the time.
No.
They don't.
We shall see. Watch this space. Would it be the first U-turn or the first dismissal of Sunak's cabinet before the week is out? Seems unlikely.
According to some betting...
Is it really? Yeah, are the odds coming in, are they? I mean, that, as you know, odds can move simply because one or two people place large bets in a very small market. Yeah. But equally, it's always an interesting guide. I'm going to squeeze in Liz in Oxford because she's been on hold for ages. We only have 90 seconds, Liz, but it's all yours.
Okay, I'm fine. I mean, that was kind of abysmal, frankly.
Yes. He said, Theo's analysis, it wasn't that bad, was it? I thought he was...
No.
What?
Not at all, no. Rishi Sunak, I'm sorry.
Thank goodness for that. It was awkward.
I mean, he says I'm going to be grown up and serious, and then it proceeds to be anything but. But I think the really important thing on the Suella Braverman question and the whole tough on crime nonsense is what he means by that is the public order bill, which Charles Walker, Tory MP, we're not talking Labour here, Tory MP stood up and said essentially that public order bill allows them to identify people they think might disruptively protest and then slap them with a GPS tracker without any kind of conviction, which is just...
It's all a bit minority. It is absolutely terrifying. In fact, it's so terrifying. I shouldn't really have lent in there to an observation comparing it to Minority Report. Liz, thank you. I warned you that we didn't have long, but you've reminded me not only the public order bill on the agenda, but of course the return of Dominic Raab to the Justice Department. We said some nice words about Brandon Lewis. It's not the curse, because, I mean, he's pretty dismal in Northern Ireland, wasn't he, when he promised to break the law in a very limited and specific way. But he had a good innings at the Ministry of Justice, and you may or may not have noticed that the strike by barristers ended, largely because he did negotiate and did sit down and did behave like a grown-up, so Rishi Sunak's thrown him out of the Justice Department and indeed of the Cabinet. But if Raab's return resurrects his determination to withdraw the United Kingdom from the European Convention of Human Rights, here's something I want you to bear in mind and share with all the people in your life still swallowing this nonsense. Only 2 countries have withdrawn from the European Convention of Human Rights, to the best of my knowledge. I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. Those two countries are Greece, shortly after a military coup undertaken by some colonels, and it was readmitted to the European Convention of Human Rights after they had got rid of the colonels who mounted a military coup. And the second country to withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights was Russia after they invaded Ukraine. So given that Rishi Sunak just ran through an absolute litany of ludicrousness with North London and Jeremy Corbyn and Brexit and protesters, don't be surprised if the European Convention of Human Rights is the next thing that you're told that you're supposed to hate for reasons that they never really explain. Just remember that it would put us in the same company, in the company of post-coup Greece and Ukraine invading Russia. Go Dominic. 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 Go Dominic.